fuels. Another system, again, he used for fertilizing the land, were these devices. They were egg-shaped devices which were actually in the ground. They were cavities, and he had a motor, and he induced a movement of water inside. This, I suppose, would have been about 2 meters deep, about 6 feet. And into this water he placed some filings of zinc and copper, and through the galvanic interaction of these, energies were also infused into the water, which allowed other interactions to take place. And this water was able then to be used. It's in a sense something similar to the biodynamic process of mixing. Then after that would take about 3 days, 4 days to prepare, and then it would be spread out on the fields or hosed out towards the evening, but never when the sun was there. The other one was a similar arrangement, but it didn't have a motor in it, and it had a number of different elements put in it. Again, copper, a certain amount of silver. These are all small filings, not huge amounts, and this generated energies which propagated themselves laterally through the soil and enhanced the processes of germination. Because you see, Viktor again saw the earth as the mother, the life giver, the giver of life, who was always fertilized by the sun. The sun's rays enter the earth and trigger the processes, so that the movement, the vertical movement of the sun, then becomes in the rotund, so what you might call the expansion of the womb, as it were. For firstly, you have the insemination, which is the energy, the information from the sun, which then is converted into a rotund expansion. And at the surface of the Earth, this actually appears to us to be horizontal, because the Earth is quite large. But in fact, if you were looking at it from the Earth as a whole, then these energies would move around parallel to the Earth's surface, although they come pulsing out from the inside, and it is these pulsations which are the cause of the spring, the blossoming in spring. And of course, there is a period of rest and a period of activity. So within these vessels, he generated energies which propagated laterally, which were these female energies, which enhanced the whole process of growth and fertility. In 1952, he wanted to have his ideas on the movement of water tested scientifically, because he was fed up with people saying, it's all a lot of rubbish, gobbledygook, and what are you talking about, and so he produced a series of pipes which he had fabricated himself at his own expense, and there are various configurations. This is a tapering rifle spiral pipe, and this is a cylindrical one. This one is a double helical spiral pipe, which is about the same as this one, and these other ones were the normal straight pipes, in order to compare the differences in flow. This up here is the leveling vessel, where a constant head of water was maintained, with a flexible tube at each end, into which the pipe under test was inserted to see what happened. These three tubes here calibrated. Firstly, the one on the left-hand side gave you the head of water available, and these ones here registered the drop-in, registered the increase in friction, or the drop-in pressure, as a result of the water passing through the pipe. So if it showed a low value, that means that there was a large increase in friction. On the other hand, if the pipes here indicated above this one, that meant that the water was actually generating energy. And the interesting thing about this pipe, it has this particular cross-section, which is more easily seen in this patent application of Viktor's. It's a pipe with, like an egg shape. Again, we always come back to the eggs, but a quarter of it is, or quadrant of it, is taken out and inverted, and this inversion rotates around the pipe, which is itself a kudu, like a kudu horn, and the water passing through this one produced some very interesting results, because as plotted on the graph. The one we're most interested in is the bottom one, but these two here are a straight glass pipe, and this is a straight copper pipe, and you can see the frictional values increase this way and the flow velocity or the volume of flow increases in that direction, so that the glass pipe and the copper straight pipe, virtually the friction increases constantly. However, with the spiral helical pipe, then you have this pulsation, this periodicity in the flow, where at one point the friction increases and then it reduces. In my view, where it's shown in blue is where the suction is increasing, and where it is red, that's where the pressure is increasing. And at 2 points on here, you can see that the actual measured values dip below the negative line, which means that in that area, the water was generating producing energy. In fact, Professor Purple, who carried out these experiments, referred to this phenomenon as negative friction. And this meant that the water flowing through the pipe and the form of the pipe itself were in a state of harmony. And in that state of resonance, there was no friction. No friction was generated in the pipe. And under the test figures, this zero value for friction occurred 3 times, although it doesn't say that it doesn't show here, which is slightly dishonest. It doesn't show the negative values on there, which should be there. Having moved very briefly, I'm afraid, through the history of Viktor Schauberger, and I'm sorry, I realize I didn't put enough years and dates in it, but that more or less covers the span of his life. The principal factor that we have to understand with Viktor's theories is it is always the energy which comes first. It is the movement of energy which is important. And if you can understand the movement of energy, if you can guide it or create forms in which the energy would like to function, to flow, if you copy what happens in nature, then by and large your problems of energy are solved. Now, if we look at historically what has happened to humanity, progress of humanity over the time, we can see that there are 2 paths which are virtually parallel. When our technology, so to speak, and nature's technology or nature's evolution were virtually on parallel paths, because mankind fundamentally, or humankind should I say, was living in harmony with nature, and so, or more in harmony with nature, and so whatever things he did which were unnatural, or whatever systems he used which were unnatural, really didn't have any effect on nature at all. But we, in our system of technology, we use predominantly explosion as the motive power, and this is totally contrary to nature's use of energy, because she uses implosion fundamentally, and implosion is associated with the biomagnetism, with levitation and so on. It is the uplifting side of life, whereas explosion is associated with gravity, with electricity, with disintegration. And the system of energy we are using today is essentially based on centrifugal ideology, as Viktor called it, and explosive, which has explosive effects. And this seeks always to destroy. And I think out of those, this centrifugal ideology has also arrived the idea of a competitive nature, because it is a divisive process. Now, on the other hand, nature uses this integrating movement, this integration of energy, in order to build higher and higher forms. So we have always been striving with our centrifugal technology to build systems which are energy efficient. And according to Walter Schauberger, who had a meeting once with the head of Mercedes-Benz, and he was discussing the efficiency of petrol engines, of combustion engines generally, Walter said, well, I believe, your greatest efficiency is about 20%. And Dr. Fritz Kortegas said, no, I'm sorry, you're wrong, it's about 13%. Now, if you think of, that means that 13% of the energy put into that car was actually used for propulsion. All the other 87% was totally wasted. And that is the system into which we are locked, because if you put in 100 energy units into a given system using centrifugal technology and explosive technology, then what you get as a return is only 13 usable units. 13%. If you invest that 13% in the same system, then what you get back is only 1.69%. And so it is a self-annihilating technology into which we are presently locked at the moment. And what it requires is a change away from the explosive technology to an implosive technology, which will once again start